Hey there, friendlies. How's up? Welcome to the next in our sort of irregular live tasting series on the channel. You guys might recognize the tasting panel tonight from at least one or maybe two previous tastings. We got Scott Green up there from Cocktails at Home channel. Scott, I realized I should have probably put a link for your band down below as well.
Oh, well, hey, that's okay.
We'll do that next time.
Yeah.
And down below, we got Mr. Mike Morton, who he's big on Instagram, right, Mike?
I don't know. No.
Doing the camping and paddling stuff. I know Mike more from the bushcraft side of my online presence than the whiskey side. Both of these guys are bigger in bourbon than I am, so I'll probably be depending on their knowledge for much of tonight. Scott, you want to say hi?
Hey, how's it going? How you guys doing tonight?
All is well.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike? How are you doing?
Good. It's Friday. It doesn't really feel like it because of the short week, but
right. I get that.
Right.
I get that. So what we're doing here tonight is the Michter's small batch Kentucky straight bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I have my knowledge remotely intact, straight bourbon means 3 years. No, 2
years.
2 years or enough. Okay.
Yeah. In order to be considered a straight bourbon, it has to be aged at least 2 years.
Okay.
And if it's any less than 4 years, they have to put an age statement on the label. So,
okay.
So we can assume that there's no age statement on this, so we can assume that this is over 4 years old.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. I haven't even read the back of the bottle. I wanted to go into this blind, and I was afraid that there'd be tasting notes on the back of the bottle. That's what I was afraid of the most. Okay.
What lot number do you guys have, just out of curiosity?
21B656. It's on the neck there.
Batch number? Oh, yeah. 21B552.
Okay, so we all got different batches, lot numbers. Not that it maybe makes a difference, but...
I kind of hope that it doesn't.
I was just curious what the chances that 3 guys in 3 spots would have had the same one.
Right.
Yeah.
Not good, apparently.
Well, if we were tasting the classic Laddie by Berclady, those lot numbers are very important because they don't aim for continuity of taste. They go for continuity of quality. So 2 different batches they'll come from a different set of barrels, well, as they all do, but they won't necessarily taste the same, but they'll both be wicked good.
Yeah, their number one goal is not to make this taste the same as the last one.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's kind of it. It's kind of like Booker's when we're talking about bourbon, they do something similar to that. Actually, you can go on and look up the batch number, and they'll tell you like so many % from this barrel on this floor in this warehouse, and then 17% of this barrel from this floor in this warehouse, and it'll tell you 5 or 6 different barrels that have sort of been put into this batch.
So it's essentially within the same ballpark of what Berclady does. What they do is you enter the batch number, and it brings up like the 70 barrels or whatever, and I believe it goes into which warehouse or which part of the warehouse as well, because where in the warehouse a barrel has been sitting is a lot more important than I had originally thought. Especially if you've got like a dunnage warehouse and stuff like that.
You can get pretty good temperature swings and
yeah, like if you're up right near the roof on a hot July day versus down sort of at a dirt floor, there could be a very large difference. I'm just I want to point out something that Tenenbaum says, that he can actually get this bottle where he lives, and he says it's 579 crowns, or about 84 or 13, including tax, in Sweden. So
that's pretty much what we
paid,
right? 86 something.
That's the ballpark. I think so. So that's pretty. So Tenenbaum, if we like this, then you can take that to the bank. Shall we get to opening this bottle, guys?
I think we should and let it kind of sit in the glass for a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, we should have probably done that right off the bat. To be honest with you.
Let's see if we get some good pops here. Oh yeah,
that was a nice pop. Excuse me.
I'm going to pour myself a generous dram.
Hey, it's Friday night.
Yeah, we're going for this one.
Nice.
Well, I think we're 3 for 3 on the nice pops, right?
Was mine good? I tried to do it right by the mic, but I couldn't hear. That's a good sound.
Yeah. All right. So, wow, I'm already smelling. Okay, here's the thing. With my small bourbon experience, I've had a fair amount of like the Woodford Reserve straight, right? That's one of my workhorses. I have had the Bullet straight. Hold on, it's right over here.
Yeah, I used to quite like Bullet because I remember not that it's changed, but 5 or 6 years ago, it used to be like $35 or maybe closer to 40. And at one point it jumped like 10 or $12. And then all of a sudden I could get Basil Hayden's or whatever for almost the same price.
Right. So this is the Bullet that I bought when I couldn't find the Woodford. Mm-hmm. I know that I don't like Knob Creek, but because I feel that this is a little closer it's closer to the Woodford scale than it is to the Knob Creek, so I'm good with this. And I have just shot, but I don't know if it's up yet. I shot a review of this, a neck pour.
Oh yeah.
This is pretty damn good.
Yeah,
I'm not much of a Wild Turkey guy, but the 101.
I don't think we can get that I could be wrong. I was in New Brunswick a few years ago, and a buddy of mine grabbed a bottle of that and brought it back. He liked it, but I haven't tried it.
So going on the small bourbon experience that I have, I'm expecting notes of vanilla, right? American oak. I'm expecting maybe some caramel, maybe a hint of spice, but not like as much as a rye.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it'll depend on. I don't know what these guys use as well in their mash. Like, with the bourbon, it needs to be at least 51% corn in the mash. But then the rest of it could be wheat, could be malted barley. And now there's a lot of 4-grain stuff happening, so that it could be rye as well. But I don't really know. Actually, that would have been probably a good thing to check out. But I'm not sure if that information is super out there, what they put in their mash. But so I guess it'll kind of depend on what else is in there. You'll get the sweetness from the corn for sure.
I have often said that I feel that bourbon, Canadian whiskey, and to a certain extent, Irish whiskey are very much in the same large dispersed ballpark, whereas Scotch is very different from all those. And a lot of English whiskey is very Scotch-like. A lot of Indian whiskey that I've tried is very Scotch-like as well. But they're two kind of very different ranges of profiles. And I think it's because Scotch and a lot of English whiskey and a lot of Indian whiskey that I've tasted, it's all it's a barley thing. There's not a lot of corn.
Right.
Whereas, like, I don't actually know, because Irish whiskey is pretty barley intense too, if I remember correctly.
I think it primarily is, yeah.
Yeah, but that triple distillation really smooths everything out.
I find it for the Irish, I don't have a ton of experience, but I find sometimes I can get that like straw-like flavor more similar to Scotch. But the one that actually I enjoy taking camping frequently is Bushmills Red Bush, which is barrel aged in bourbon barrels. I think it's cheap. It's real cheap, and it's pretty good.
Right. Yeah. And I haven't tried the Red Bush yet.
There's a Black
I have
Bush
not tried
too.
that. No, I'd like to. Yeah,
the Black Bush I think is sherry, but the Red Bush was good for like camping or like whatever. It's like $35 maybe.
Nice.
less than 40 for sure.
I need to try a few more Irish whiskeys. Like, I've tried your Jamesons. I really like Redbreast, and Green Spot. I've tried, but I don't think I've ever tried any Bushmills at all.
I work with a guy, and about a year and a half ago, pre-pandemic, he swore if I ever start feeling a little bit sick, he takes a shot of Bushmills and calls it good. So I'd seen him do that a few times back when he used to like go out in public sick and shit. So I was like, all right, one time I'm gonna do it. I never had Bushmills, whatever. I'll just do the shot, and it was real smooth. So that's why I went out and bought the Red Bush. And actually, I'm looking at it now. I have a bottle my dad got me of Bushmills single malt 10-year, which I have not unfortunately opened, or at least I haven't drank any. So I should probably get on that.
I've been. I finally saw Green Spot out in the wild here in Quebec, and I was gonna take it, but I was buying. I think I was buying tonight's whiskey at the time, and I couldn't stretch the budget for 2 bottles. Yeah. But that was the only time I've seen the Green Spot here, and also it's a 40%, and I have a really hard time buying 40% these days. They're the only Redbreast I've ever seen once. At some point was I think 40% as well. They've got a cask strength though. Yeah, that I want to try. Yeah. So what do you think? Have we let this sort of sit there and breathe enough to?
Well, I think so. What's this? What is the rule? A year in the barrel, a minute in the glass.
Yeah, a minute in the glass for a year in the barrel. So we've done 5 minutes, right?
Yeah,
it's lasted longer than most of mine do.
Okay. First of all, I don't know anything about whether or not that's caramel colored or if that's natural color. I didn't see anything on their website. Well, the thing is, I didn't pour over the website or anything. But
yeah, it's hard to tell with bourbon. Like there are strict requirements of what makes something a bourbon. A lot of rules, and maybe we can get into those a little bit. I've got a fair bit of an idea of what all those are, but sometimes it's hard to find information like chill filtering and caramel color. Yeah.
In my experience, they're all quite similarly colored, which either means they all use the same dye or the barrels all do the same thing.
Right.
The charred oak, right?
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's funny because on this wild turkey, it says right there that it's a number 4 char. So to me, if you're going to do a number 4 char, you'd be wasting it to a certain extent to color.
That's true, and I think the number 4 char is, I don't know. I think that equates to like, I don't know. It's almost a minute of burning or something inside the barrel. So
whatever it is, it's the biggest char you can.
Yeah, I believe that, and that's the most common one too. I think most. I've heard of some experimental bourbon companies or companies experimenting doing like a level 7.
Wow.
Yeah, which is not even on the scale, but they've just kept it there for like 3 minutes, kind of thing, burning.
Yeah, because at number 4, you're already getting alligator skin, right?
That's right.
So number 7, crumbs.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the nose, I'm getting what I was expecting. There's some caramel, brown sugar, vanilla,
like brown butter.
Yeah.
It's nice. I'm getting barely any like heat really, or like anything that's aggressive. It's just
I was just gonna say that there's not a lot of like straight ethanol smell or
but it is definitely lively. What is this? This smells like a 45%. I don't know.
45.7.
So it's essentially a 46. I'm not. That might have sounded like my nose is so dialed in that this is a 42, maybe a 42.3. I recognize a certain zing off of something that's around 45% or up, but this was not priced like a 50% bottle of whiskey.
I think the vanilla notes are pretty big in this and really nice.
Yeah, see, this Basil Hayden's, to me, you can smell the alcohol a little bit more, and it's only 40.
Okay.
It's also like almost half the price, so.
Right. Judging by sort of the tears in the glass, I'm expecting this to have a nice, slightly oily mouthfeel.
Yeah, it looks pretty
definitely,
thick.
Definitely tearing up good.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of sweetness, like, you guys mentioned the, sort of the brown sugar, buttery.
Butterscotch, maybe.
Yeah, butterscotch. Yeah, good call. That's definitely butterscotchy.
Yeah. Even a little bit of those, remember those Lifesavers rum and butter?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That don't taste like rum or butter.
Immediately.
It's funny. I was looking for
Good
those
call.
for years. I bought some on Amazon like a couple months ago, and I had to buy 20 packs. So I have like 18 packs sitting right over there.
Dude, that's a solid buy because those are amazing.
Yeah, it cost me like $40.
Yeah.
Rums.
Did you guys? So I grew up out on the East Coast. Did you guys, where you grew up, have rum and butter bars?
No.
Not that I remember.
Okay, they looked exactly like caramel bars, like the same shape and size of a caramel bar, but they were called rum and butter, and they tasted like those. They were like a chocolate, and they had that like soft caramel inside, but it was rum and butter. They were amazing. I haven't seen them since I was a kid, but
yeah, I don't remember that.
No.
Anyone else getting a candy corn note?
Candy corn. I guess, yeah, like, now that you say it.
Mike, you know candy corn, right?
Yeah.
Stuff tastes so terrible in your Halloween bag, but
I actually
it's working here.
I don't mind it for a brief window in time, and then
I love candy corn. Yeah, exactly. Like
you can have 3, and after that, it's like okay.
Yeah.
I can eat more, especially I like the pumpkin ones. The small ones, you feel like you gotta eat like 1,000 of them. But the pumpkin ones in the fall those are good. But like after like a week or two, I'm like, get these out of my life. And then maybe in the summer, I might take someone on a camping trip or something.
Right.
Yeah, I won't eat them all year, and then I'll see them like in the bulk bin somewhere, and I'm like, oh, yeah. I might. Now this is kind of definitely like way underneath everything we're saying here, like vanilla, butterscotch, the caramel notes or whatever. But maybe a little bit of like a fresh, I don't know what kind of apple, but like a little bit of an apple-y kind of note in there for me.
Maybe more like a baking apple or something.
Yeah.
I would say more like those apples that are bigger on the crisp than they are on the flavor, like a Golden Delicious or something, maybe.
I need to up my apple game. I don't know any names of apples.
I find too that I get like a little bit of like apple cider, but I partially think that's because I was at a wedding a couple years ago, and their pre-dinner drink was Knob Creek bourbon with maple syrup and apple cider.
Oh,
interesting.
And it was so good, and yeah, I've made that many times since. So maybe that's why my connection is from. But
I would love to know what the specs are for that drink. Is that like a half ounce of maple syrup and an ounce of apple cider, or?
It's like twice as much apple cider as bourbon, and then a little bit of maple syrup. I'll get it. I'll ask my buddy. Yeah, it was a New Year's Eve wedding. The problem is that they went down really quickly, right?
Yeah. All right. I think maybe I'm gonna go in.
Let's do it.
Gonna go in, check it out on the palate, as they say. Okay, now there's some spice there. A lot of that sweetness we were talking about, though, it's all just there.
Yeah,
it's all there. I've got the butterscotch, the caramel, brown sugar, vanilla, definitely.
Yeah, a little bit of heat.
Definitely some heat.
It tastes remarkably like it smells, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm so used to Scotch where you get a lot of sweetness and a lot of weird fruits and then some green notes and stuff, and then you take a sip and everything just goes boom, and it's like, oh, there's all this other stuff happening that wasn't there. But this is very, very similar on the palate and in the nose.
Yeah, it's there's something that happens right away. I'm trying to put my finger on. I think it's the butterscotch. I think I got hit with that right away.
I got hit with the heat right away.
Okay.
And then everything else.
The heat came a little later for me.
Okay.
I get a little bit of I get some of the barrel. I can taste some oak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's magic about bourbon for me, because of where I'm used to, is like you get all these flavors, but there's no maltiness. Right? So it's like fire and sweetness and like a dip where I would expect the malt to be. And so I sometimes wonder if I came at Scotch from a bourbon drinker's point of view, how would the maltiness add itself to the flavors? Because that's the note that you're not used to, right?
Yeah, and that's why it's been tougher for me because like this, I find bourbons are all obviously a lot more similar than the range of bourbon is a lot tighter than the range of Scotch. Yeah. So like you're used to having one thing, and then the Scotch is.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, you don't get a ton of, with Scotch, it's, you go to these different regions and you're getting all this smoke and salty air and all these sorts of things. That's not so much a bourbon trait, but it has its own sort of identity, and it does kind of travel through a lot of different bourbons that you'll try, but it sure is a whiskey I love to drink, man. I enjoy my bourbon, that's for sure.
Yeah. As I explore more, on the bourbon side of things, bourbon for me always seemed a little like, for instance, Wild Turkey. Definitely more sort of Harley Davidson than I like to be.
Right.
Which is why people, like more than one person said, get the 101. It's, it kicks it up a notch. It brings its A game and you're going to like it. And that's absolutely true. The Woodford Reserve, I actively like. It's not something I don't hate this. It's like, I actively like that. I'm actively liking this Michter small batch.
Very good.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think I like about bourbon is it's quite versatile. If you want to drink it on its own, it's good. If you want to make an old fashioned, it's good. Boulevardier, good. You want to slam it with some cheaper stuff with Coke, good.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that next time we do one of these tastings, what we got to do is each bring the makings for our favorite whiskey cocktail, and test it as a sipper, and then throw a shot into a drink and see how it stands up to like lemon and stuff like that.
I was thinking that earlier this week. I should have said something.
We talked a little bit about the charring of the barrels. We've got a little bit of history on why the barrels were charred to begin with. And if you guys know anything further, feel free to chime in. But I was doing some reading about it, and so apparently, so a bourbon is an American whiskey. Not every bourbon is an American whiskey, but not every American whiskey is a bourbon.
Right.
There's certain criteria that go into it, and one of it is being the new oak barrel, a white oak barrel that's charred. So they don't reuse barrels; they have to be brand new. But back a long time ago, before Kentucky was a state, I think it was still part of Virginia. There was a county, I think it still exists, County Bourbon, and they were notorious for making whiskey. And so they'd make whiskey, barrel it up, send it down the river. People would purchase it and whatnot. But the thing was, this was much before there were any regulations on what kind of barrels they would want to use. So they basically used anything they had lying around. So they had old barrels that maybe had fish guts in it, or or gunpowder, or manure, or fertilizer, anything. And so, I mean, obviously, you put whiskey in that, it's going to permeate through the whiskey and made for some interesting, gross.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what they discovered was a real efficient way to sort of sanitize the barrels was to burn them.
Okay.
Char the inside, and the result ended up being a much better tasting whiskey, because that char just opens up the pores of the barrel. It activates the lignin, which gives us the vanilla and all that sort of stuff. So it was sort of on accident or by necessity that they started charring the inside of the barrels, and it was basically just to kind of make them able to use the barrel after it was being used for fish guts.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And it's funny how that whole necessity being the mother of invention thing works out sometimes, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, they just stuck with it, and now they do. I find it really interesting, like bourbon. One of the criteria is it has to be a new barrel. It can't be a used barrel. So I feel like there's a couple of reasons for that. Maybe because if it's a new barrel, it does impart probably the most amount of flavor in the shortest amount of time.
Yeah, it oaks much faster than if you're using an ex-bourbon barrel on a Scotch kind of thing.
Yeah. But I also really appreciate the cyclical sort of economic relationship that creates, because you've got the cooperages that are making barrels for bourbon companies, keeping them in business, and then once you put your bourbon in the barrel and you can't use it again, what do? You sell that barrel to every other whiskey company in the world. Like, how many scotches and other whiskeys have you tasted that are aged in ex-bourbon barrels?
Beer too, lots.
Yeah, I've got a Jameson that's either aged or finished. I think finished in a stout barrel.
Oh, nice. That's interesting.
Well, what's interesting about that is the stout edition. It's their the Jameson Caskmates series. They've got there's a stout, there's an IPA, but IPA makes me dry heave, so I'm not going to spend money on the whiskey. And there's something else for the Ontario market. And the stout edition, the flavor is better than the Jameson, than your bog standard Jameson. But I find that the finish doesn't work as well.
Okay.
So, it's not going to replace your standard Jameson in my rack. That's for sure. But it's a really nice, because I like me some stout. Right. Yeah. If you say, hey, Jess, come over for a beer, and I come over for a beer, because if you say you want a beer, I'm on my way over. And you say, I got like IPA or stout, I'm going to take the stout. If you say I got stout or pretty close to anything, I'm going to take the stout. I'm into brown and like bitters and stuff as well, but I do love stout and porter. So when I saw that, I was like, I am tasting that tonight. And I picked up the bottle. And it's very nice on the nose. It's very nice on the palate. It's just that the finish doesn't work as well as the bog standard Jameson.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely have to try that. I'm a fan of stout as well. I like all different types of beer, but I'm not very adventurous when it comes to IPAs. Like I'll drink a mild IPA or something, but I've got some buddies that just go for the hills when it comes to the
that's me.
Whatever the count is.
That's you, eh?
Yeah. What is the thing? The hops, like how hoppy it is.
Yeah, IBUs.
Yeah, bitterness. Yeah, I'll drink anything that's hoppy, like to the moon. I prefer something that's like 6.5%, 7%, and like more fruity than just, because some of those like 10, you gotta really, you gotta watch your pacing on that, because that'll get you quick.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I live in a province where like the 8 to 10% beer is like a cultural imperative. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Because like I find that at around 10% on a beer, the alcohol is at that point overtaking the flavors a little bit. It's not like whiskey, right? Like the beer flavors, once you get around 8 to 10%, the alcohol can bury those.
Yeah, I like a good 6, 7%, 8% is fine. 6.
Mm-hmm. Hey, do you guys get Nickelbrook? Oh, you seen that? Nickelbrook?
I've never seen it.
I've never seen that.
This is from Burlington. They do this thing called, they used to be called their cuvee. They call it Glory and Gold now, and they do it every single year. So it is it's different every year, but I believe that this is 9.5%. It comes out around Christmas. And it's usually a brown ale of some kind. And then
I like a good brown ale, actually.
This one has been aged in bourbon barrels, but they also put in a bunch of intricate mixture of sweet malts, fruits, spices, and herbs, then aged in Kentucky bourbon barrels for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I got this one at Christmas. I haven't drank it yet, but yeah, it's 9.5. So like that's something that
It's pretty heavy duty for
like
beer. Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
July is not coming up. I'm not drinking this, but yeah, if you can get a hold of these, they have they make good beer. I'm surprised they don't have it in Quebec. Maybe that's not that shocking. They do Kentucky Bastard. So they have their regular stout is called the Bolshevik Bastard.
Okay.
And then they do a Kentucky Bastard where they take that and they age it in bourbon barrels.
Huh.
Do a Winey Bastard where they take it and age it in wine barrels.
Okay.
And
That's
there
cool.
might be one other missing, but yeah. Everybody likes the bourbon barrels to bring that back on topic, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's where they're only used once. There's a lot of life left in them.
mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. And it's funny because there's a Canadian whiskey in my rack over there. I don't remember the name of it. It's a 7-year.
Is that the Bareface?
I think it might be the Bareface. And part of their thing is that they do the initial aging in bourbon barrels that are just tired. They're retired. They're just nothing, because what they're doing is they're treating the entire whiskey aging process like you do with wine, because their master distiller is actually a wine guy. Their master blender, I guess. So they start out with these used to hell bourbon barrels, and then they do, I don't know, a few months, I don't remember the numbers, in like a red wine barrel from Kelowna, and then they finish off with, I think, 7 weeks or 1 week, something like that, in virgin Hungarian oak to add a real sort of on top. Because like American oak gives that nice vanilla taste that we recognize, and then European oaks are a whole lot spicier, right? That's where you get darker fruit notes and spice rather than the vanilla and everything. And then this virgin Hungarian oak, it just sort of, it brings the game up a little bit on the sharper side of things. And
That's interesting.
It reminds me of what you were saying, and then a conversation I was having. I was listening to a live stream by the Whiskey Dictionary, or it might have been Aqua Vitae, where I was saying that you don't see a lot of really aged bourbons, like compared to scotches and stuff. And someone said, well, excuse me, because the oak is virgin, it oaks so much faster than a pre-used, than like a second fill, first fill, second fill. So that, I mean, I've seen some, like there's a Pappy Van Winkle out there that's a 21, for instance.
Yeah.
But it's much rarer to see that kind of age statement on bourbons. And the guy was saying, well, it's because fairly often it's because they oak so quickly that, if it's been sitting there for 20 years in in a virgin oak barrel, the oak notes are going to possibly overpower the business. And I mean, I've never drunk a 21-year-old bourbon, so I don't know if there's truth to that. But logically, there would be truth to that, to me.
Yeah. I tasted an older Pappy. I don't know if it was the 2021 or they do 23. It might have been like a 15 one time. And I mean, at the time I was out there. There's a barbecue joint in town that brings in Pappy, once or twice a year. And so I was out and about. I can't remember now if it was particularly oaky or not. I'd love to try it again. That's for sure.
Well, is the barbecue place still there?
It is. It's still, yeah. They're surviving. Yeah, I believe they'll do it again. If whenever we can get things back up and running. And
Scott, where are you living now?
I'm in Edmonton.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's a fair bit west.
Yeah.
Hey, I just thought of something. Okay, so you guys know how for the past few years Ontario has had an allocated list, right? They've allocated everything Ardbeg. Apparently, I was watching the Whiskey Rant with Whiskey in the Six and Sippers Social Club, and they were talking about that, how Ontario allocated everything Ardbeg because apparently here's the thing, Scott. In Ontario and Quebec, it's a liquor commission. Right. Here's the SAQ. There's the LCBO. Now, what that means is you don't need the bill to return a bottle of booze.
Okay.
Because there's no one else selling it, right? So what was happening apparently was that people were buying like a case of Ardbeg from Alberta and then returning it in Ontario because you're still making profit because of the difference in price.
Is that right?
And so they put all the Ardbeg onto the allocated list in Ontario, apparently. Now, starting last week, we have an allocated list here in Quebec as well. And it's interesting to me because it used to be that there are two good things about having the government monopoly on your alcohol sales. One is if stuff like Blanton's is sold at fair retail price here, because you don't have retailers pumping up the price because it's a really in demand whiskey, right? In New Brunswick, they have a rule apparently that you cannot go 20% above cost, right? The markup is set. And
because they have a commission as well, right? NBL Cool or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And so do we, right? So the markup is very specific because government run, like crown corporations are not supposed to be heavily into the profit game. You know, like Hydro-Quebec is not allowed to make a profit, for instance. So that was one of the nice things. And the second thing was that we never had to deal with allocated lists.
So what does that even mean?
Well, okay, so allocated. Well, here the SAQ calls it a lottery because that's essentially what the allocated list is. You know, the list appears. Well, in Ontario, the list comes out and you put your name on this, that, and the other because those are what you want. And then if your name comes up for one or more of those, then you can buy them.
Okay.
Oh, I see.
So the allocated list for Quebec is open from last week until the second week of June, I think. And the first thing to appear on that was the Springbank 18. And I looked into it because not everything came out at once here. It's rolling out, I guess, as they get shipments in. And everything Springbank makes is allocated in Quebec. Now, two sides to this coin. One is, wait, you mean I have to enter a lottery to see whether or not I can buy this? The second thing, though, but the good thing about that is, you know what? I'm not making sense. I'm going to start that whole sentence again. There are two aspects to the allocated list. Okay. One is, it's kind of weird to enter a lottery to have the right to buy something. But here's the thing. Things like Springbank, I've never seen on the shelf in Quebec. You know, these are the kinds of things that if you don't have an allocated list, then someone with a big pocketbook who really likes to play on the secondary market will swoop through, buy almost all of it, and then flip it at a massive price increase, whatever you call it. Sorry, I haven't been speaking.
Gouging or whatever.
Yeah, like they'll mark it up a bunch. Yeah.
Now, the Ontario allocated list, Rob from Whiskey in the Six kind of got bit because he had some of his family members put their names in on certain things, and he paid for. I don't quite remember how he described it, but he paid for one of the bottles he put his name in on, and one of the bottles that I think his sister or mother or dad or whatever put their name in on. And the LCBO saw the same credit card on both of those and canceled them both.
No way.
Right? So, because
Strict.
the whole, that's the, because the whole idea of the allocated list, not the whole idea, but one of the ideas of an allocated list is that it eliminates the scalpers so that I could, if I really wanted to, have the chance in hell that I would not normally have of buying a Springbank in Quebec.
Right.
You know, so it stops those guys from loading up the back of their truck and then flipping these things at a huge markup.
Even too, I think it provides equal opportunity, like even for non-scalpers. Like, let's say you saw something you really, really liked, you might go buy 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah,
because you never know when it's coming back. So now that you can't do that, not that there's an issue with that, but now instead of one person getting 2 or 3, 3 people can try it. So I guess
that's true.
Pros and cons. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure I would even know when those things come up. I'm not into it nearly as much as you guys. So
and I only knew that there was an allocated list because Passion Whiskey Quebec on Facebook announced it, and what they do is, I don't know how the Ontario one is done, because if I'm buying from outside the province, I'm buying from Alberta, because they'll mail it. Whereas the LCBO and Quebec both have that thing in common where, the monopoly is in this, so they don't want anyone crossing borders.
Right.
But I think that the number of bottles for the whole province they got of the Springbank 18 was like a 436 or something. Right?
That's such an interesting system. Yeah.
And that's in a province of 8 million people.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's a lot of it to go around. But fortunately, Ardbeg has not appeared on the allocated list here, because if it did, I would be a very, very, very sad boy. Because that's probably the pinnacle for me. Them or Bercladich. I have some favorites, but Ardbeg is right up there.
Man, so I tried Ardbeg for the first time a few weeks back. I picked up a bottle because you and I had talked a little bit about it.
That was the 10, right?
Yeah. And man, I'm enjoying that so much. So much, in fact, that I decided to come full circle and try the first Scotch that I'd ever tried in my life, Lafroig.
Wow.
That was the first Scotch I ever put to my lips when I was like 18 years old. My instructor in college, I went to recording school, and at the end of the year, or at the end of the second semester and the end of the first year, we sort of had a bit of a party, and all the students got together, and we knew he was a Scotch drinker, so we pooled our money and bought him a bottle of Scotch. His favorite Scotch was Lafroig. So at the gathering, he said, "Hey, anybody wants to try a dram? Like, try it out." I tried it, and it was the worst thing I ever drank in my life. It put me off of Scotch for years. I wouldn't touch it, and then around in my 30s, I started to kind of creep back into the Scotch world, and super happy I did. But so I decided, after having the Ardbeg and really enjoying it, that I was gonna give Lafroig another try and sort of see if I've come full circle on it. And I have to say, man, I bought the quarter cask, which is really cool, right? It's small casks. So again, talking about things that oak early, like a smaller cask is going to mature that whiskey way quicker than a big cask. And
there's no age statement on that.
No. And man, am I ever enjoying it. I'm getting all the vanillas, just a bunch of beautiful cask tastes, along with all the regular Isla, the iodines and the smokes and the salty air. Like, it's beautiful. So I'm really happy that I sort of come full circle on Lafroig.
I have a funny Lafroig story. So I don't think I'd ever had it myself before, but I knew that it's fairly peaty, smoky, right? Fairly aggressive. Okay, so I'm go with my wife. This is about 3 years ago. We go to St. John, New Brunswick. I gotta go there for work. So there's actually, I don't know if you, Scott, if you've been to St. John, but there's lots of good bars.
Yep.
So we went to this place. It's kind of new. Maybe if you haven't been back, it's called Port City Royal.
Yeah.
It's new. It's a cocktail bar. It's very good. Pretty good food. Anyway, so I go in there with my wife before dinner, after dinner, it doesn't matter, I guess. And I don't know what I had, but she's looking at the menu. When she likes alcohol, she likes maybe a Coors Light, like wine is cool, and like some mixed drinks, maybe like light stuff, like maybe an Aperol Spritz or something, like nothing heavy. You would never catch her drinking like even like the easiest bourbon, nothing. So she's looking at the list, right? And it's all fairly aggressive stuff. And she picks this one, and it's the Lafroig quarter cask in a cocktail.
In a cocktail.
Wow.
Yeah. With I don't remember the details, but there was lemon and honey involved and some ginger. And she's like, "Oh, I like all those things. Like, I'm just gonna get this." And I was like, "Dude, like that is gonna like you don't like you wouldn't put anything in your mouth. I said, this is gonna be crazy. Like, this is gonna blow you up, and go ahead, because I'll drink it when you don't.
Yeah.
But like at the time, I would not a huge Scotch fan, and like especially I knew that the really smoky peaty stuff was not in my hood. But she's like, no, I'm gonna get it. So I'm like, all right, cool. Gets it. Loved it. Like,
really.
Nice.
So I was like, I gotta taste this. And I was like, there's no way you can taste the smoke or the peat. Like, I'm just gonna take a swig of this. Like, this is just gonna be all honey and lemon. Sure enough, take a big swig. I just choke on that like big old thing of smoke. And I was like, what the hell do you like in this? Because you wouldn't even drink anything. Like, she wouldn't even have just like a sip of the plainest rye or bourbon you've ever seen. And she just she liked it so much she wanted me to buy the bottle.
That's amazing.
I think it's like, you want me to buy you $100 bottle of Scotch to make you these. It was called penicillin. That is what the cocktail is called.
Okay, yes. Penicillin.
So maybe some of my details are a little fuzzy on what the rest of it is. I'm pretty sure
it's the one that's got a smoky Scotch splash and a non-smoky whiskey in it.
It could be this place like to like kind of change things up. So this was only.
That makes sense. So the ginger, lemon, and honey syrup.
Okay, so I was pretty right on that. Yeah, it was just so funny that if you ever asked her to have Scotch or even any kind, even like gin or something like really easy, even like port wine or something, she would think that it would gross her out, and she's just slamming this like.
That's awesome.
She's not had another one since, and I was gonna buy the bottle, but she's like, when she found it was $100, she's like, yeah, don't buy that because I'm gonna drink one of these every 2 years.
Right.
But the combination of flavors, obviously, she liked that whole mix of all those together. Yeah.
I just remember it because I remember going to taste it. I'm like, oh man, this has got to, like, you're not gonna be able to taste the Scotch in this at all. And I just took a big swig and it just slammed me on the side of my head.
So here's the recipe for your traditional penicillin: 2 ounces of blended Scotch, 3/4 ounce lemon juice, freshly squeezed, of course. 3/4 ounce honey ginger syrup. 1/4 ounce Islay single malt Scotch. That's where the Lafroig was. And in fact, Lafroig is kind of what the hell are you doing, Holmes? Lafroig is kind of the default for a penicillin, I think.
Okay, so they just went straight with the Islay.
I think I'm gonna have to make one of those. I'm definitely gonna mix up one of those for my channel for sure.
Yes, you probably should.
Yeah,
that place had some pretty good stuff. That's where I learned about that. Why I can't think about that gin, the juniper gin, not juniper. Hold on, let me just grab it.
And the butterfly pea flower color changing.
No, it's called gin.
I got some of that.
It's called Gin Thuya. I don't know if you guys have seen this before.
Oh yeah, Gin Thuya, yeah.
It's not just juniper. There's a lot of cedar in it. That's where the Thuya comes from. The Latin name for cedar is Thuya occidentalis. So it's cheap. Like, this is like $28.
In fact, you needed me to buy you a bottle of that at one point, but I didn't find it. Right?
Yeah.
Because you were having a hard time finding it.
I just dragged it back. And if you smell this, it's like smelling a cedar chest. So you get a lot more cedar than juniper, and it's really good. That's where I found out about that.
Interesting.
When I saw it was $28, I bought 3 or 4 of them and smuggled them back. Which is good that I did because the pandemic hit.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you mention that because I was going to say that there's a restaurant here that's very terroir driven. It's called Manitoba, or I guess where you guys live, there you call it Manitoba. And my wife took me there for my birthday one year. And if you want to blow a hole in your wallet, that's an excellent place to do it. But the food is very, very good. And they've only ever got like 8 things on the menu, and the menu changes, right? It's one of those places. And so I had an elk, what do they call it? A tomahawk?
At the bone in, yeah.
Yeah. And my wife had great stuff. Anyways, fabulous food. But they had a cocktail, the name of which I completely forget, but it was a whiskey-based cocktail with some lemon, and they had a homemade, or I guess bar-made, cedar essential oil or whatever, like a cedar syrup.
Yeah.
And it was just just beautiful. And so I keep meaning to pick up that gin Tuya that you've got there, because I have a Quebec gin here that's very boreal.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of boreal plants are in it. And I saw another one recently that the SAQ has a big sort of boreal flavors sticker on. Because
these guys make some other stuff. Fille du Roi, was that Sons of the King? They make a bunch of other stuff. I've never tried anything else, but I don't know, for $28 or under $30. Like this is the same. At least in New Brunswick, this is like the same price as like Beefeater or whatever, like paint thinner gin you want to talk about.
Yeah.
As far as this, by the way, I'm really the like heat, the burn, like is really gone for me. Like
it doesn't burn too long. Hey, what do you guys think of the finish? I think the finish lasts a pretty long time. The burn goes away fast, leaves me with like a tongue full of butterscotch.
It doesn't really change, but it does seem to linger, and you can really see the legs or whatever you guys were calling them, but it really sticks there. And maybe that's part of the reason it's just sitting in your mouth and not dissolving easily.
Yeah, I also see a link between like an oily mouthfeel and a bit of linger.
Right.
It's funny because I've also heard these called legs in wine and tears for whiskey, but does anyone call them legs in whiskey as well? I don't know enough to.
I'm sure they do, but I'm sure they do. I think people know what you're saying when you're saying legs or tears for sure.
I've never done any really official wine tastings either. I've done gone to wineries. I did see one. Okay, another St. John, New Brunswick story. We are going to at Winston Churchill's, which you've probably maybe been there, Scott. But
I have not. No, I've had quick stop in St. John. Yeah,
it's like a 3-layer. There's like a pub and a nicer restaurant on top. When we were waiting for a table, we're sitting at the bar, and these people are doing wine tastings. And they got the old spit bucket out, and it's just I get why they do it, but it's like, come on, man, you're tasting wine in like this pub in St. John, New Brunswick. Just put her back and have some fun.
Right. Yeah. I took my wife on a wine tasting in British Columbia one year, and she took me on a wine tasting in sort of the Niagara region, each for each other's birthday, back before we had kids. So
you should do Prince Edward County next. It's a lot closer to you.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know Ontario very well at that point, But that spit bucket is damn useful if you're like, sip. Oh, I don't like this. Right. Because that's what it's there for, right? If you take a sip of something, you're like, wow, this is munge. Then,
but if I'm not driving, I'm still putting that down. Someone works hard for that, Jeff. Come on, man. You can't just put that down the sink.
I have almost never poured out the glass, but every now and again
it had to be pretty bad.
If I'm going with my wife and I'm driving or whatever, I will pass it off. I'll pass them off. But I don't know. Like I wouldn't say I have a passing interest because I enjoy the flavors, whatever. I just don't have enough time to be like into it as much as you guys. So like to me, there's rarely something I find that's like truly disgusting. Like I don't really like white wine, but anything red, generally beer. Anything. I like anything. We actually had this really good restaurant. They haven't done it in years, but it's called Brew in Oakville. Obviously, it's a beer bar, but for a couple of years, they did all these beer pairings.
Yeah.
So it was like $40, and you'd get 4 or 5 courses, and like a brewery would come in, and they would match it obviously up with 4 or 5 beers. It was just enough food and drink to get you like drunk and hungry to order dinner. So I think that was very strategic. But I felt like $40 is a great deal, and it was really enjoyable. I don't think I've done any kind of other like alcohol pairing. I guess I don't really do that for whiskey. Do you? I know wine is obviously common.
The Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, for their outturn for one of the months last year, I think it was, or the year before, the whole outturn was part of I don't remember what they called it, but there was like the bottle of whiskey and then a beer that it would go very well with.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those, or like pairing a whiskey with cigars and stuff. But
yeah, sure, yeah. I don't really. I've had a few cigars in my life. I don't really love the taste, but man, I really enjoy the smell. So like my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, they smoke them, so I'll just sit, in between and
Yeah,
get a little bit of smell.
I don't smoke them too often either, but I do really enjoy them. My brother is way more into cigars than I am, and so he kind of educates me a little bit on them, and he'll bring over one from time to time, and we'll sit
Here's a question: does like a really smoky Scotch go well with a cigar, or is that just too much smoke going on? Would you
Right, that's a great question. I think there's two schools of thought on it. Like, I think mostly, you would pair a less smoky Scotch with a cigar because you're getting so much smoke from the cigar. But it also depends on how full flavored the cigar is as well. But I've tried both, and something that I find that's really interesting when you pair a really smoky Scotch with a cigar is that the smoke sort of gets negated. So that's sort of like a non-factor. It's nullified. And now all you're left with are any of the sweeter notes of that Scotch. So it's kind of an interesting experience.
So a bit of addition by subtraction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't pair whiskey with cigars or anything. I try not to pair whiskey with anything because I don't want anything to interfere with the taste of the whiskey.
Right.
Well, especially, it's one thing if you got like, like a lot of these bourbons I have is like what, $45, $50, which is not a big deal. But like you buy something that's like $100, $150, why are you going to dummy that with like cheese or whatever, which is cool. It may taste good together, but you spent money to taste this. So it kind of seems a little counterproductive at some point for me.
Yeah. But yet there's a massive, the internet is full of guys who have their Instagram channels and stuff of, these guys pair whiskey with a cigar. They go together well. They've figured out, like what Scott was talking about, this goes well with this. And I'm not going to diss these guys because, dude, you bought the bottle, enjoy it however you want, right? But for me, I like nothing to interfere with the taste of the whiskey, unless it's like, here's the Walker John Red label, which I'm going to add Coke to sort of negate the whiskey.
I have to say, there's one of our guests here made a comment about Jack Daniels, and I saw that a little while ago, and I've sort of kind of bookmarked it for myself because I think that would be something interesting for us to talk a little bit about, like the whole Jack Daniels. Is it bourbon? Or because they don't label themselves as bourbon,
right? Because that was it, the Lincoln County process, right?
Yeah, it's
called Tennessee whiskey, right?
Tennessee whiskey, but the bottom line is it is bourbon. It's just they don't want it. They don't want to be marketed as bourbon. I mean. They want to stand alone and sort of be their own brand. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a difference in they do an extra filtration process. With the charcoal
they charcoal filter it for extra smoothness.
Yeah, but if you like look at the check boxes for what a bourbon is, Jack Daniels is a bourbon. But I think they did some. They got some like legitimate test or something like legally they were I think Tennessee had prohibition longer than most other states in the US. I think most prohibition ended in like 1933 in most states. In Tennessee it ended in like 1937. And so they started making their whiskey again. And the government told them that they had to label it as bourbon, but they fought against it like tooth and nail. They really believed it was something different than bourbon. And they ended up fighting so much and getting like an actual lab test and a document that said like molecularly, this is not bourbon. Whether or not that, I think a lot of people question the efficacy of that particular lab test in the 40s, but it really comes down to marketing. And this is a bit of a controversial statement. There might be some people who'll disagree with it, but at its essence, it's bourbon. But they just kind of wanted to stand alone and be their own. They wanted to be different, a differentiator.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that exact question. The marketing angle, maybe it's like different. Like I don't really follow Jack Daniels. I've certainly had it with Coke and whatever on its own before. It seems to be a bit more like a blue collar, like
right.
whiskey of the people situation. Do you think that the connotation of bourbon is maybe to them is like too fancy or too expensive, and they just want to be like some dude doesn't want to, some dude that worked in like the West Virginia coal fields or like whatever, he doesn't want to walk into a bar and ask for bourbon. He just fucking wants Jack Daniels. Give me some JD.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Like maybe, I can't. I mean,
back in the 30s, that's I'm not sure they would be really defining it.
I feel like they felt they were above bourbon. It's only really been the last, I think, 10, 15 years maybe that bourbon sort of had this resurgence where it's become sort of a sought after whiskey where people enjoy it like they enjoy a scotch or anything like that. So I think they were trying to elevate themselves above bourbon.
Interesting. There you go. So I don't know.
Well, it's funny, if you're going to throw that much work into elevating yourself above bourbon, you should have made a better drink. Because I tell you something, man. You want to give me a glass of Jack Daniels? I'd rather shit in my hand and clap. Just no way.
Oh, I won't. I don't drink Jack Daniels. I mean, I drank it. I remember, we started drinking when we were young back east.
We're gonna say, you guys on the Rock are a whole lot like us here in Quebec.
Yeah. So like
you guys started early and often.
Absolutely. So, in high school, I drank Jack Daniels because I would bring the bottle of Jack Daniels to the party because I saw Slash from Guns N' Roses had a bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand in the guitar magazine that I was.
He was reading. Cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of where that started for me. But yeah, and if we're talking about actual taste and sitting and enjoying, I mean, they make a barrel select that's a little bit nicer. But yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question because like on my channel and in my life, I have often, like for most of my life, I just haven't had the patience for Canadian whiskey because it's every Canadian kid has the same sort of Crown Royal experience and everything. But and I always say, like, as I've been discovering Canadian whiskeys because of COVID, I mean, Scott, I've been talking to you about it. It's like there's some great freaking stuff in this country if you don't go the Crown Royal route. And I said that on a TikTok, and someone said, "Have you tried there's this,
XO,
it might be that, or like their barrel select, or I don't know. They've got some sort of special."
They have a couple of quite expensive ones, and I only know this sort of by proxy because my grandpa was a Crown Royal guy.
Okay.
And my dad at some point had bought him this
did they make a 40-year-old?
Yeah, it was Crown Royal XO. This was a long time. So my grandpa's passed away almost 20 years now, but my dad had bought it for him and it was still kind of half there. Okay. When my grandpa passed away. So my dad inherited it and he's slowly been finishing it. And him and my brother finished the last of it, I don't know, year and a half, couple years ago. So for Christmas, the last time we could go there, so I guess a year and a half ago now, we bought him, it was XO Red, Rare. It was, anyways, the last of the Crown Royal, the good stuff that was made in Waterloo. And it was expensive, man. I don't remember what it was, but it was more than 100, maybe 150, 200 bucks. And we tried some. It was pretty good. I mean, to my sort of unrefined palate. I mean,
but was it 200 bucks good though?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
Probably not. No.
Here's the thing. I have a couple of $200 bottles over there, and because the thing is, with whiskey, you can hit $500 without even throwing an effort in, right? You start to get a taste for like an 18, 21-year-old kind of range of flavors, and suddenly you're not down around the $100 mark anymore. But you know what? Couple of thoughts, and these aren't bourbon thoughts; these are Scotch thoughts. So I'm going to be as fast as I can so that we can get back to the bourbon. But I find that Scotch is in its golden age somewhere between 10 and 21 years. Past that, and you're more grading the quality of the barrel than the distillate. That's painting everything with a very broad brush. I'm saying generally.
And I think that you're also paying for the fact that there's just less of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
so much is so much of the angel share or whatever.
Yeah, and you know what?
Probably risk too that somewhere in those 24 years the place is going to catch fire or the barrel is going to leak.
Which has happened many times. Yeah.
And yes, absolutely. And at the end of the day, if you got a 40-year bottle there, how much of that is because that keg, that barrel just sat there and tasted every year. It's like, no, not this year.
That was for the barrel they just forgot in the back top shelf. It's like, oh shit, we better sell this. Just put the high price. How much dust is on this?
Yeah, it's funny, Scott. You were mentioning Angel Share. I saw a picture of Lafroig 28 year, I think, and cask strength at 28 years was 44.4%.
Right.
Because of Angel Share.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about the Bowmore Black 1966, I think it was, where when they finally bottled that stuff, it was like 40% or 40.1% cask strength. I was just thinking, like, can you imagine the guy whose job it is to be sitting there and, oh geez, we're at like 41%. We better bottle this soon, because if it hits like 39%, it's not whiskey anymore.
I don't even call it whiskey,
yeah. But yeah, because at that point, if you add a higher octane, younger whiskey into the barrel to bring the octane back up, you suddenly can't call it a 40-year whiskey anymore.
That's right.
No, yeah.
Because of the, I don't know if that law, I don't know if that's the rule for bourbon as well, but for Scotch, the age statement is the age of the youngest whiskey in the bottle.
Right? Makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It is a little bit different with bourbon because you don't have to put an age statement on it. The only time you have to put an age statement on a bourbon is if it's under 4 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we're dealing with a 3-year bourbon, then it needs to say that. But otherwise, they don't have to. They'll choose to if it's a selling point, maybe.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because you can have like a 6-month bourbon, right?
You can.
Oh so, yeah. Once it's touched oak,
doesn't have to be aged at all. Yeah, yep. Fairly. Should we add water to this, do you think?
I've been keeping a little. I've been wondering if we're going to. I have to add some more to my glass though, because I've been slowly working on it.
Well, I'm just. I mean, I don't need to. That's for sure. This is lovely on its own, but I do wonder what it'll change if we bring anything out.
I'm gonna add some more whiskey to the glass.
Yeah, I'll put a drop in mine. I don't have anything down here. I'll figure out a way to do this.
It's all right.
I'm gonna put like.
Yeah, I think we should figure out a way for the next, if we're doing something bourbony or Canadian whiskey or something, figure out a way to do a cocktail during the second half. All right, I've added 2 drops of my distilled water. I'll just roll it around.
Yep.
See how that changes things.
And I think, anybody who's new to whiskey that's watching or anything, I think that there's always the sort of that temptation to just kind of throw it in the glass and drink it right away. You really, really benefit from letting it sit for a while. Mm-hmm. The benefits are tangibly there if you just let it sit and open up for a while. All that ethanol that's sitting on the top of it will dissipate, and you'll get way less of that alcoholic taste, and you'll get way more of the flavors if you just kind of, what I like to do is pour. Like if I know I'm going to have a dram of whiskey that night, I'll pour it and I'll go and finish up what I'm going to do for the rest of the night, and and I'll let it sit there for 15 or 20 minutes before I sit down to it.
Yeah, I almost never, once I pour a whiskey, I almost never go right in. One whiskey that really, really illustrates this to me is a bottle that I'll be straight with you, I'm never going to buy again. I have a bottle of the English Smoky. It's an English peated whiskey. And if I crack and pour, the Band-Aid element is so strong on it that I actively dislike the whiskey. And it's weird, because when I poured it the first time, on a review outside freezing in my backyard, I quite liked it because I recognized the scotchiness and it, blah, blah, blah. But ever since then, when I open it indoors, there's a Band-Aid element to a lot of peated whiskeys. Yes. I think Lafroig's got a bit of it,
Absolutely.
And it's
sort of the medicinal iodine-y
Yeah.
Band-Aid. Yep.
And it's way too strong on the English smoky. But if I let it sit there for like a half hour, the Band-Aid kind of disappears a bit, and I can see what I liked the first time I opened that bottle. Okay.
Interesting.
I'm not going to buy it again because it makes me work for it too much. Like certain whiskeys make me work for it, but the reward is there. Like there's a payoff.
Mhm.
And I find the payoff on this, even after it's been sitting there, I'm like, okay, all right, I like it. I don't like it enough after that.
Yeah.
It's not the payoff. It's sort of okay. You know what? Talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to go get the bottle so I can show you the bottle I'm talking about. Okay?
Yeah.
It's like the English Smoky. What the hell? I know, because it's got a terrible title. I'll be right back.
The English Smoky.
So Scott, what part of Newfoundland are you from?
I'm from a very small town just outside St. John's called Placentia.
Okay, I've been to St. John's for a wedding.
Okay.
2015.
Okay.
4 or 5 days. We didn't get a chance to do a whole lot because of the wedding stuff, and we did the classic like lookout. We went to what's the easternmost point? Cape
Spear.
Cape Spear. Yeah, we did that. We went up to Artillery Hill or Signal Hill.
Yeah.
Actually, my favorite thing we did is we went on this big ass drive. We went west a bit in the north, and we just drove through all these little towns.
Yeah.
Stop like one place for lunch.
Yeah.
Wander out, and you see all the like
some beautiful scenery around there. Hey, like it's a beautiful part of the country. I grew up there. I've been in Alberta now for 20 years, but I go back very frequently because as Jess may have mentioned, I play in a Celtic band as well. So we get to go back and play quite a bit in Newfoundland. So it's nice. I get my fill. I get to go back every year, and every time I go back, man, and especially when I go to my little town like Placentia, it's about an hour outside of St. John's, and it's a little sandbar right on the Atlantic Ocean. And every time I go back there now, I take I bring the kids there, and we walk the boardwalk. I go, man, this place is beautiful. Yeah. And I remember growing up there. I couldn't wait to get out of there. But now I go back and I just realize how
different priorities and different outlook on life back then.
Yeah.
You think you're gonna go back when you're older?
I don't know if I'll ever live in Newfoundland again. Probably not. But I mean, I'll always visit. My folks are back there, and you never know what'll happen. Never say never, I suppose. But I'm not sure that I would go back to Newfoundland. If I'm looking for a real spot to retire and just kind of live out my days, I might think about going further west to BC or something. I don't know.
Yeah, BC is spectacular.
Newfoundland and New Brunswick. I guess you can understand this too, Jess, because you're being in Montreal and me being in the GTA. But when you're in St. John or St. John's, like 20, 30 minutes in a car, you're in the middle of nowhere. Like you're in like Crown Land.
Hell yeah.
Like, here 20, 30 minutes, it's just fucking more suburban hell.
It's more a suburban nightmare.
Have you ever been to Newfoundland, Jess?
No, I've never been to Newfoundland, never been to Nova Scotia. Oh. We did some shows in New Brunswick and PEI, but we just didn't have the time or, to be honest with you, the dates to extend it outwards.
I feel like you'd love it there, being like, you guys are in camping guys and stuff, and bushcraft guys.
I just took a sip.
It's okay. What'd you get?
Torched it. I got to me it's like the butter caramel good flavors are half, and like the medicinal alcohol is back.
Hold on.
Even it smells differently to me now.
I get it's got a little more burniness.
Yeah, it's a little sharper.
A heat. Yeah.
I did a very unmeasured. I have like a sink on my bar. I just ran the water over my finger and dropped a couple. So there's not much science here, but I don't know.
When you're just dropping a couple of drops in there, it's not the same as actually diluting the whiskey, right? And what's happening is the volatile elements and the less volatile elements work with water differently, and so you're getting a spikier flavor.
The water probably breaks the surface tension as well, which probably helps promote some of those volatiles coming out, and maybe that's what we're missing is some of those flavors and smells have gone.
Yeah, it's definitely sort of tamed down all the really, really nice butterscotchy notes that we were enjoying so much at the beginning.
Yeah, and brought out the spikiness.
Yeah,
I don't think that was an improvement.
No, it didn't. I don't think. I guess maybe I was overstepping once I completely torched it, but.
Yeah, I don't like it as much. When I'm doing a review and I'm like, sip, and then I put in water and I like taste, and then I just sort of go glug, it's because I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Is that a thing people frequently do with the water? I mean, I've heard that forever and ever. People say like, put a little bit of water in it and it'll make it better, open it up. But like, I never really found that.
Apparently, the entire nation of Scotland adds water to their scotch.
Yeah, it's a very, very common thing, and I think a lot of people really enjoy it. Like if you watch, if you watch any like Ralphie reviews and stuff on YouTube, I'm big Ralphie guy. He definitely loves his water.
Yep.
And
I just don't. When I'm drinking something cask strength, even then, like I have not yet had a bottle of cask strength that has demanded that I add water. I think if I had something around the high 60s, I would probably have to change that a little bit. But and by the way, here's the English smoky that I was telling you about.
Yes. Right.
Oh, come on. The light's too bright.
I think I remember I saw that review.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, but I haven't enjoyed it since. And like I crack it right now. Salty Band-Aid. Salty Band-Aid.
Salty Band-Aid.
Not even a fresh one. Salty Band-Aid.
It's mercy.
How much do you have of it left? Enough. Oh, okay. You're halfway home.
Thing is, it's not. I'm not gonna pour it down the sink. Do you know what I'm saying? I have bottles over there that I will keep for if we're ever allowed to have people over again. And it's you have people over and like, hey, do you like whiskey? I don't know. Do I like whiskey? Well,
drink some of
we're about to find out. Like, so I've got like
expensive, but I don't really like it. So try this.
Well, like all my 40% stuff is for when people come over, because if someone who's a dedicated whiskey drinker comes in, I'm not giving them my 40% Edgedour. Right. Sure. I mean, I'm going to give them something better than that. But someone who's not sure, or they're a like a casual whiskey drinker.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a 40%. Now someone who's a casual whiskey drinker, I cannot pass this English smoky off on. But maybe I'll just make penicillins and use this instead of Lafroig.
There you go.
There you go.
I always like to try, like, again, you haven't been able to have anybody over in so long, but if that changes here in the near future, I definitely, I have a few friends who are not whiskey drinkers, but I always like want to try and like make them just say like, oh, that's pretty good. So there's a couple of whiskeys that I have that I've got in mind. I've already got them earmarked in my collection where I'm like, the next time that this person comes over and we decide we're gonna have a whiskey, I'm gonna give them this one.
Okay.
And one of them actually is one of the ones we tasted a while ago, the Maison Sivo.
Yeah, that I think is an excellent gateway whiskey because it's so dessert-like.
Yeah, I think anybody will have that and go, oh, because I want to kind of like, there's this like preconception with whiskey sometimes, I think, with some people where like it's harsh or it's like, oh, I don't want to drink straight whiskey. But if you can just get them onto the right one, maybe you'll, I don't know, maybe you'll start them on a pretty interesting journey. So,
yep, absolutely. I think there's something to be said for that. What are we at? We're at an hour and 18 minutes. Like, I was just making sure we weren't like going deep into the night or anything. This conversation's interesting enough that I'm not checking the time.
Scott, do you have a YouTube channel? Is that what Cocktails at Home is?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I'm just looking it up.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I haven't been doing as much on the YouTube channel as I have been on like TikTok and Instagram, but I still do post on I do the longer format videos where I'm kind of talking a little bit about the history and making a cocktail in front of you.
Is the channel called Cocktails at Home?
Yeah.
By the way, to hell with you for doing the 60-minute reviews, because I was gonna do something like that,
Oh, really?
60-second reviews.
Yeah.
But as soon as I saw the first one of yours, I was like, you know what? Because what happened was around the time that your first one of those appeared, my editing computer died.
Right.
Which is why I haven't put anything out on any of my channels
Yeah, I've
or
been waiting
TikTok.
for a review. Yeah.
I've got like 12 filmed but not edited and put up. And when my editing computer died, it hilariously corrupted my video library. So I have to do a backup of that. But until I have a new computer, I don't trust that computer to back up the library because it takes forever. Or to whatever. So I got all these videos shot, but not out yet. Like, I think my review of this I shot like 2 months ago or something, and I don't think it's up yet.
No, I thought I saw that one. Okay.
I've not watched it. Maybe I missed it.
I've got a bunch of bottles that are reviewed, and like my second review of the Leipzig 10. I've bottled that down now, right? I shot my second review, and because I've got all these bottles that I'm afraid to drink too much of until I do my second review.
Yeah.
Right now, it's like, what's the point?
You have not posted the wild turkey.
Okay, so that's not posted yet. It's shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when that popped up on your channel, it's like on your TikTok, because I've been trying to find a path to TikTok. I've put a few things up, but I haven't found what I really want to do with it yet.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I wanted to do those. I mean, it's very difficult to review a whiskey in 60 seconds. I go about it with the intention to be super fast and just give a couple of notes and that sort of thing. I still have to edit them. I still have to, it's not as much as like we talked about before, where you're doing a full review and you're really having to chop it. But I still do have to chop it a bit to fit it into the 60 seconds. But yeah, I just wanted to do something quick and fun. They're pretty fun to shoot. Like I can do a bunch in a day, and and kind of formatted for TikTok, although it's not really what TikTok wants. TikTok wants I think we talked about this before, a little bit more on the silly side. Like I've done a bunch of I have so many videos on TikTok now, and some of them do okay, some of them kind of flop. I did one recently where it was just a silly little clip thing. I stitched another video of a guy, saying something funny, and that video, just kind of like had a whole bunch of views. Yeah. So there's a little bit of frustration there with the TikTok and that, where it's like, okay, the real stuff that you want to try and get to, it doesn't do so well, and then the real funny stuff kind of.
I don't know if you can see this, but my very first TikTok was I had re-edited my classic laddie for a 60-second review, right? That was the very first thing I did.
There's something, so like for someone like me, if there's a 25-minute YouTube video on like a single scotch, I'm probably not going to watch that. And if someone who doesn't like it less than I do, 60 seconds, you can take 60 seconds to watch it, and that might get you into it enough to want to watch the 10-20-minute video later.
Yeah.
And you see, what I think Scott did better than me is that he's shot them for TikTok, whereas I was just editing a YouTube video for TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I tried that as well in the beginning. When I first created a TikTok, I tried to edit down a cocktail video, and it was just it was brutal. Like it made no sense. So yeah, when I decided to do, like, basically I'm kind of looking every Wednesday, I'm going to drop a Whiskey Wednesday 60-second review.
I'm having more of this, by the way.
Yeah. And I'm just shooting them specifically with TikTok in mind, and that translates well over to Instagram. And,
yes, because they're both vertically oriented.
Yeah,
right. Whereas YouTube is beautifully oriented. I have a hard time with the vertical orientation. Yeah. I'm old school. To me, footage should always be shot horizontal, and I have a hard time. Now that's because I went to film school, right?
Yeah.
I have a real hard time transitioning to a vertical mindset for media. It sort of throws me a little bit.
I gotta figure out. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, was that maybe a little too generous for my third pour of the night?
I don't think so, man. It's Friday night.
You're a Newfoundlander. I keep
Yeah, you know, like,
you're like, Jesus, probably just keep throwing it in there.
Yeah, like you're not gonna scare me.
A Quebecer and a Newfoundlander. We can
I was
finish a bottle in a second.
And I said, I got to figure out. I got that woodland caribou trip coming up.
Whoa, really?
Did I tell you about that?
No.
Yeah, I'm going on. The plane leaves on July 5th.
Where are you going?
Woodland Caribou Provincial Park.
Where's that?
That's
border of Manitoba.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's 5 hours north of Thunder Bay.
Okay.
And then we take a plane 100 kilometers into the bush, and then we come back out.
Amazing.
I'm going with Joe, so you'll see the video.
Oh, you're going with Joe. Scott, when he says Joe, he's talking Joe Robinette. In my main channels, what do you call it? A niche market or whatever. He's kind of the big Canadian.
Nice.
Because he's I don't know, what's he at now?
Million something.
Yeah, $1 million.
Oh wow.
6 or something.
Yeah, he called me a couple months ago, and he wanted he's gonna do all three: wilderness, Wabakimi, woodland caribou, and I'm missing the third one. But anyways, he's gonna do all three. Then he's like, I'm going to do woodland caribou in early July. Do you want to come? And when I was at like a cottage with my wife and my son, and I was like, well, yeah, obviously I want to, but like, so we talked about why. He's like, because the flight in is not cheap. He's like, I will pay for everything.
Wow.
He has a business. He's going to expense it, right?
Wow.
He's like, all I want you to do is film more, like help me film us and film some more of you as well. I was like, so I talked to my wife, and she's like, well, you got to go. It's like $1,000 plane ride that you're getting for free.
Dude,
So
that's amazing.
We're going for 9 nights. We're doing 100 kilometers, so it's really not that far. Should be good. I'm looking forward to the plane. It kind of hasn't really hit me yet because of this whole COVID thing. I'm still waiting for. I mean, you still technically can't go, but that'll be no issue in 5 weeks. But
when you go in 5 weeks? You said.
Yeah, July 5th, the plane takes off.
Man, you have my envy. Interesting thing. So Scott, on my other channel, I have this video where I ended up with 2 of the same axe. I won an axe in an Instagram giveaway, and then tried to source a replacement handle for it, because on an axe, a handle is almost like not a disposable, but
Consumable.
Consumable item, right? You're going to break the hickory handle at some point. And I like the what did I say? I like the drapes to match the rug. So if it's the curtains to match the carpet. So I like the handle to have the same brand name as the head, kind of thing. But the thing is that axe company had been bought by another axe company and was no longer making axes for sale under their own name. Long story short, the axe I won was from the outfitter at up there where you guys are going to be.
Yeah, we're only going to. So we actually, Joe still knows that guy Harlan. He called him.
Yeah, Harlan. Yeah.
And so we're going to Ear Falls, which is almost an hour drive short of Red Lake, but the plane ride is like 10 minutes longer to get to the same spot. So we're saving 2 hours of drive, and the outfitter has cabins. So I'm going to drive, because it's 24 hours of almost 24 hours of driving for me to get there. I'm going to drive to Joe's on Saturday the 3rd, which is 8 or 9 hours, crash at his house. We're going to drive all the way to Ear Falls, which is 16 hours, crash there, and they got 8 a.m. the wheels up. And he has a special license. He can put 2 canoes on the floats. Most guys only have one, so we can go in one boat, one plane. So,
do you bring whiskey every time you hit the woods?
Day trips, no. If I'm going for the night, yeah, absolutely. I find I don't even always necessarily want much of it. I like the option. The number for me is somewhere like 2 to 4 ounces a night. So like if I'm going for 3 nights, I'll bring like 8 to 10 ounces. And sometimes I won't even drink it all, but I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just like, I'm fucking tired. I just want to like sip on a couple ounces and go to bed. But sometimes you're like, all right, well, I could drink 2 or 3 of these tonight.
What's your sort of go-to whiskey when you're at camp? And let's say you've been in the bush for a few days, and
Scott, you're magic. That was exactly where I was going with this.
Oh yeah,
I got 2.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. So I use these Nalgene bottles to bring them.
Pine Martin also uses Nalgene bottles for his whiskey.
You got to do it like the night before, and it can impart some flavor if it's left in there too long, I find. So I'm not going to bring anything that expensive anyways, but so I have 3. The number one thing, like I drank a lot of that Red Bush, and I really liked it because it was cheap, and the plastic didn't fuck it up too much. I guess I'm swearing too much. Plastic, it's 11:30. Who cares? Plastic.
Stop fucking swearing on my channel. God damn it! I'm gonna get demonetized. Oh wait, I'm not monetized.
So yeah, the plastic doesn't mess it up too much. It's good. Whatever. The second one that I take a lot that I really really like is this Basil Hayden's Dark Rye.
That's the Dark Rye, right?
Nice.
Either of you guys had this?
No, but you told me to find it, and I was going to
suggest maybe for the next one of these we do this one.
Okay.
Because to me, it's my favorite non-mixed, favorite whiskey alcohol straight I've ever had. And I don't know whether that's just because it's me so that's why I'm curious to get some people who actually know what they're talking about to get their opinion. It's only $50. It's not that expensive. So it's rye whiskey and there's some port wine in there. That's what gives it that red color.
The red color, okay.
And I think it's fabulous. So I take this fairly often because it's not terribly expensive, but the flavor is just so good. It's just the straight whiskey that's the best I've ever had, and I would consider bourbon my favorite whiskey. Okay. The third one, it's tight there. Let me get the bottle. I got this from my dad. Stepmom got this for me for Christmas a couple years ago, and I've been really nursing it. So I take 1 or 2 ounces of this for the last night. This is a 500 ml bottle. It's Del Professor Vermouth. Okay. So it's Jamaican rum cask finish. There's not much info on it. I know,
but it's vermouth.
It's vermouth.
It's white vermouth, obviously.
Finished in nectar of the fucking gods. Okay, so all I know is that for 500 mils, it was $130 because I looked it up later. And oh my god, I can't even tell you. I'm not even a vermouth guy, but this shit, it tastes oh my god. So I've been saving it.
I want to try that.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because for me, vermouth I use as a mixer, and in fact, I would give money for maybe they might sell this in the LCBO, but you sure as hell don't get it at the SAQ. I want half bottles of vermouth. I want the 375 ml. I found 500 ml, so I bought a red and a white of that because here's the thing: I use vermouth purely as a mixing element. Okay, I don't use it. I don't.
Yeah, me too.
So by the time I'm halfway through a bottle of vermouth, it's gone stale because it's just a wine, right? You can't keep it forever like you can with
a lot of them. They sell in a fucking liter thing too.
I know it's brutal. I know I've got my fridge right now is massive bottles of vermouth and Lillet Blanc and all this stuff in there where you can't buy I wish I could buy half-size bottles. And
I like Lillet Blanc a lot more than vermouth, but I still want a 375 ml bottle or a 200. That would be ideal because it's the same, right? I use it as a mixer. Yeah. I use it as the modern equivalent to a Vespa, right?
That's right.
Some others now.
Which is not
you're gonna crank it out. Oh, look at this.
Man, I'm just a little bit.
Love it.
Maybe I'll take the rest of that to Woodland Caribou. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's just so good, and I've never. In all the cocktails I make, I use red. Mm-hmm. It's just
but you wouldn't use red for a martini.
Great, yeah, or in Negroni. It's so syrupy. When you taste it, it literally almost tastes like syrup. It's very sweet.
Yeah, you're not putting that in a mixer. You're drinking that just in a Glencairn, just the way you are right now.
You can really taste the very light grapes. The flavor is so light, but it just dances there.
So, so Mike, I have a follow-up question for you, but I also want to ask a question to Scott. So I'll start with Mike. So to you, when you're bringing a whiskey camping, you want it to be something fairly cheap. You're not bringing a really high-end whiskey.
I don't know. In my mind, I want the good stuff because I'm bringing very little. But the fact that I know that I'm putting it in a plastic container.
In a Nalgene. where
like,
it might get. Yeah.
I might bring this because it's $86, but that's probably like a lot of these ones are like $50. So that's kind of a good number for me. That Red Bush is the only bottle I've had, but I had it on 2 canoe trips last year and I really enjoyed it. So I would consider buying that again for that purpose. But yeah, $50 is kind of a good number for me. It's good enough that you can taste the difference and it doesn't taste like you're just like drinking like JD paint thinner or something.
Yeah.
It's not too expensive that you're worried about it getting like a little bit modified.
Yeah, because of the Nalgene.
And some people bring glass bottles. I like to throw my shit around, and I don't want to have to worry about breaking it.
I've had this conversation a lot with Pine Martin, right? Because if you're going to, like, you can't bring glass into like Algonquin Park, right? In places like that.
No, you can't bring cans either.
You can't bring cans, right?
Can bottles, yeah.
So it has to be plastic, you know.
Crownland, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm going to be going on a 4-day canoe camping trip with him this summer. And if he doesn't like bringing glass into the woods, I'm not bringing glass into the woods.
Where are you guys going? He's a Crownland guy, I assume.
Yeah, he's a Crownland guy. He's purely Crownland. So I have like a couple of tiny Scotch Malt Whiskey Society bottles, but
there's nothing wrong with bringing glass. They just say don't do it because they're all fucking idiots. They just smash it everywhere. I mean,
and I'm very much a pack it in, pack it out person.
I don't bring. So sometimes on the first night, I will bring, like if it's like a fall trip or a spring trip where it's kind of cold, I'll bring a couple of beers, like 10% high octane, whatever, because it's nice to just crush a couple beers, and I ain't gonna bring those. And you just crush the cans down, throw them at the bottom of my pack, call it good. But I would never bring beer because it's so heavy. And like I used to bring wine because that was nice, but like obviously whiskey has a 3-to-1 advantage on weight. And not that I'm a huge weight weenie, but I'd rather carry around 30 pounds than 40.
Yeah. Tenenbaum just said something interesting. Sig makes a lined aluminum bottle for beverages. The liner is still some kind of plastic, but designed not to impart flavor.
It's probably Teflon.
I'll take a look for that. Scott, I wanted to ask you if you're a big camper.
No, I mean, not in the last bunch of years. I do love camping. I usually will get to go maybe once a year, but never like into the deep bush or anything like that. Used to camp a lot when I was a kid. Again, kind of going back to those days of drinking in high school. Camping was something that we could tell our parents we were going to go do, and they'd be cool with it, and we could go camp in the woods and just do whatever we wanted. So I camped a lot when I was a kid that way. Not so much in the adult life, doing, big trips or anything like that. No, but I do really enjoy it. I'd love to go. I'd love to get into it more. That's for sure.
When I was young, I'd go camping with my dad out in BC. I had a very schizophrenic upbringing. I grew up part of the year in Montreal, part of the year in Vancouver, thanks to the magic of parental divorce. And we would go camping in the summers. My sister and I'd go with my dad. And my dad was a carpenter, so there was never any money around. So we were never equipped, really. Like the axe was whatever you could afford at Canadian Tire.
Right.
Your camp knife, more than one trip, our camp knife was one of those carpenter's utility knives where you just flick out the blade, because that's an ideal camp knife. But I mean, it's what we had. We made it work because there was no Ramiers around to tell us, this is the knife you need to camp with,
Yeah, it cuts stuff.
Yeah, it cuts. It cut. And we didn't. The stuff you do when you come at camping from a bushcraft perspective versus a car camping perspective is completely different. Yeah. But the reason I'm asking is because, like, to me, I like to have some nice beer or some nice whiskey, which I don't touch until after all the bladed things have been used and put away for the night. The fire has been made, stuff like that. But to me, the best thing is to sit there in the solitude of the woods, end of the day, relax, maybe a book, maybe just staring into the fire. Because I can just glance into a fire and then it's an hour later.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I stare into fire like
yeah.
So are you guys traveling every day? Or are you just going to post up and do some day trips? Or you just, when you go with Martin, you guys figure that out? Don't know?
I know. You see, because my thing is, I have this large project that I was going to do next summer, but I'm putting off for a summer. I'm going to be 50 next year, right?
50? Wow.
Yeah, I turned 49 on the 21st of May.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm still here. I got this with some of my birthday money.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Oh, I did see that. Yeah. From
That's
Nate.
the salad.
Yeah, he took some of my money too.
Yeah. Nate will take your money. That's for sure. He'll make you want to spend it.
He when we went on that camping trip with my brother, he picked the spot and he came and visited us one day, brought us a bunch of beers and
yeah. To me, like I like that moment when everything is done and the only thing that's left to do is to enjoy a beverage and look into the fire and then sleep, right? And and I always wonder, like, because Mike, you're saying that you like to bring stuff that's affordable because you're throwing it into an Nalgene. Although Tenenbaum has this, it says that Sig makes bottles that won't impart flavors. Because here's the thing: even if you're putting it into one of those little stainless, whatever they're called in English, those things you put in your pocket, flask. If you leave it in there for more than a couple of days, you're imparting flavor because it's starting to eat away at the.
I find even if you're drinking out of a metal container, you're get tasting that.
Yeah, so which is why, like, to me, I would love to just bring a little glass bottle, but I'm afraid of just breaking it or.
And so when you guys are out in the bush and you're having a dram, what do you drink it out of? Do you have like something?
You don't want to know.
Like is it something that is shaped at all like what we kind of tend to go for? No, I guess
I have a little titanium mug that I bring sometime. I brought it a few times and I'm like, this is stupid, and now I just drink right out of the fucking plastic bottle.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have
dishes, whatever.
I have a little set of tiny shot glasses, like metal, pewter, or aluminium, or tin, or.
I like how you say aluminium.
Scottish grandmother, and I'm French Canadian, so there's no aluminum. What's the
aluminum?
Aluminum. There's no aluminum. But and the reason I'm asking is because the reason I brought beer instead of whiskey for so long is because I want to bring my best whiskey because that is the best moment of my life. Do you know what I'm saying? But I don't know how to bring my best whiskey without it tasting like Nalgene or tin or aluminium or whatever.
Offer up some sort of a counterpoint. You want to bring the best whiskey because it's the best moment. You're enjoying that. But my sort of counterpoint is that if you bring the slightly less whiskey, the moment is so good it elevates it. And you're in the middle of nowhere with nothing, so the fact that you have anything at all makes it, it turns like a 7 out of 10 whiskey into like a 9.
I think that's a really interesting point.
Because of context, okay.
I feel like that would definitely, because you're in this moment where you're just totally happy and it's quiet and you're in the wilderness, and you could almost make a bad whiskey taste good in that environment,
Yeah.
So one of my buddies, he used to do. It's an M&M story versus whiskey, but it's the same kind of thing. So he used to do a lot of canoe trips when he was younger in high school. He would go all summer, 30, 40-day trips down the Seal River, Blood Vein River. Mm-hmm. So 5 years ago, almost to the day, it was early May, but he came on the first trip with us in a long time. He hasn't been probably in over a decade. So he was, an important thing after dinner is your snack too, whiskey and snack. You get those dialed first, and then everything else you can fix. So he had this big, huge bag of peanut M&Ms. We're gone for 5 nights. And sure enough, after like the third night, the peanut M&Ms were starting to get low. And he looks at me and he's like, what's my biggest regret right now? I was like, what? He was like, I'm at the grocery store, living a life of luxury. I can have whatever I want in the moment. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need 2 bags of peanut M&Ms. I had the second one in my hand. And now here I am. I got nothing. and fuck that guy and put the second bag back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing with the whiskey. Is like you're out there and like whatever you got, and the whiskey doesn't need to be a $200 bottle to be good, because your other option is lake water. So
fair point.
the other thing I like to do is
to
like if I was going like on this trip, I'm going for 9 nights. So what's my number? Between 2 and 4 ounces. So we're talking like a 2.6. I won't just bring 26 ounces of one. I like to mix it up. So I'll get I'd rather bring 3 250 milliliter bottles than one 750, and then you can kind of like sit from one to the other, or like, you know, one, it's really good for rationing, so that you don't all of a sudden, you got 250 mils, that's good for 2 nights. You can kind of like not get screwed on the last night. I don't usually have that problem. I find, like I said before, when you're out there, you're kind of tired and you don't really feel like getting lit up. You just want to have like what we had tonight, right? 2 to 4 ounces. You just want to, and you just spread it over a couple hours. You get that little buzz, little glow, and then you pass out and go to bed. I don't mean pass out from the whiskey. I just mean you're exhausted and you just
it just settles you down. Yeah,
chopping wood and stuff.
If he knows that you probably don't go that often, he's not going to take you on some crazy trip. If you want to bring a glass bottle, just bring it, put it in a sock, and stuff it inside something else, and just don't throw your shit around. It won't break. I've never broken anything, cameras, whatever, and I'm not easy on my stuff. If it's in there, it's...
Dude, I've broken cameras without even leaving my house.
I would like to go on a camping trip. Like, I've never done anything that's been that long, like 9 nights or anything like that. I would love to do that sometime in my life, but I'd like to go with a couple of guys like you who know what you're doing. You've done it a bunch of times. That would be a great time for me to, and then also, at the end of the night, sitting around the fire, being able to, talk about our whiskey and that sort of thing. That'd be a really great time for sure.
And so, sorry, Jess, go ahead.
I was going to say, and like something like this might be a good campfire whiskey.
That's what I was saying. It's right in that range where it's not so expensive that you're really worried about like diluting it, and it's good enough. And it's got lots of those good flavors, and I don't think you have to worry about being scared of it. Yeah,
and it's a nice flavor that would fit well with that environment kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas like some of my more high-end, peat monster Scotch Malt Whiskey Society bottles, I kind of feel that there's a place for that, but like the bourbon flavor is, and I'm going completely on theory here because I've been bringing beer because I haven't known how to bring the whiskey without flavoring it with the plastic or whatever. But I think that bourbon around a campfire, 3rd night into a 4-night excursion, just seems to fit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are very familiar flavors, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I'm overselling the whiskey plastic thing. If you like fill your bottles up 3 weeks before you go, I wouldn't suggest doing that. But like if you fill them up the night before and you're only gone for 4 or 5 days, you're not going to really notice a difference. Sometimes where I notice the biggest difference is if I get lazy and like I'll go on a trip, say middle of August, late August, and then again in September, and I have like the whiskey left in the bottle. I'll just leave it there because I'm not going to put it back in the bottle because I don't want to potentially taint that, and I got nowhere else to put it. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to leave this 250 mils in this bottle.
You put it in your stomach.
Yeah, I know.
I just want to be clear about that. You put it.
So how much are you going to bring for 4 nights? What's your volume per night?
I don't know, because I mean, to me, part of the joy of whiskey is in sharing it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I never met Martin, but I'm aware that he enjoys it.
He enjoys a whiskey. His tastes are a little more on the affordable side than mine.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still got some. I've seen some of his bottles, and he doesn't like Blanc. He likes good stuff. It's just he spends $60 to $80, whereas I tend to go a little north of that for no good reason, really. That classic laddie has taught me that you don't have to scratch the $100 mark for a really good bottle of whiskey. That's like a $70-ish, $80 bottle. Fan-frickin-tastic. So okay, if I'm going for 4 days with Martin, I do not think that he's a Peathead, so I might bring a bottle of that classic laddie. What I might do is bring it in the bottle to his place and then throw it into the not Lexan, whatever he uses, Nalgene bottle, the night before we go, and then just bring my little metal shot glasses. It's nowhere near as nice as. Look, to me there are two glasses. No, there are two classes of whiskey glass, right? There's an appreciation style glass, and then there's an exploration kind of glass. This is an exploration glass, right? I'm nosing, I'm letting it sit for like ever, and then I'm swishing and looking and doing all the really snobby things. Oh yes, of course, I see the tears, But if I just want to sit back and have a whiskey just to enjoy the whiskey as an appreciation thing, that's where things like those what the hell are those overpriced glasses called, Scott? We've both got them. Norland.
Oh yeah, the Norland glasses. Yep.
Yeah, those are great appreciation glasses, because the fact that I can be talking to you, and while we're talking, I can keep eye contact with you, and still, because right now I'm keeping eye contact with you, but I can't. Right, I have to break eye contact.
Yeah, you really have to sit back on the Glencairns. Yeah,
because the Glencairn is specifically designed to, because this is specifically designed as a nosing and tasting glass. This is not designed to be a whiskey enjoyment glass. It's designed to be an exploration glass.
So don't sleep on just drinking straight out of the Nalgene. I got two reasons for you. One, when I'm out there, I'm a real minimalist, so like less stuff I got to bring and wash. I hate doing dishes at home. I don't want to do it out there. Two, I've seen this happen so many times. My brother is really bad for it. He likes to drink out of his like 800 milliliter titanium pot. So you get in there and he likes to bring he'll bring rum and like a bottle of Coke and do stuff like that. And actually, Adam Romano, I know you know him, but he likes to do what he does. It's fairly genius, but he gets the those soda streams.
Yeah.
They get they have the flavors for like ginger ale or Coke. He'll bring those, dilute that with lake water to the right concentration, and then he'll mix it. You don't have the fizz, but you got the flavor. But anyways, you get this big drink and like it's dark and you had a couple and like you're fucking around, and I've seen so many times you just dump one of those over and you're like, oh my God, like you can't go get more. So you get that analogy and you put the lid right back on and you are locked and loaded.
Yeah.
So
right.
It's not the best drinking experience, but like I said, high tide rises all boats. Raises all boats.
That's an interesting, thought though, and that's definitely a coming from a man with experience though. Yeah, if you're out camping, maybe something with a lid is a pretty good idea, so you don't spill your nice whiskey that you've just brought or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, because nothing's flat. Like where the hell do you put it down? And if you got most glasses, like something like this, that's gonna tip so easy. If you got something really wide, not as easy. What works really well too is those like ceramic coated like steel mugs. They're like 200 mils or something.
They're the little enamel. Yes.
Yeah, those work great because they don't impart any flavor. You could literally stand on them; and they're not going to break. They're wider, so they don't tip.
And
they look cool.
I'm old school, so to me, the enamel cup and the enamel coffee pot are the pinnacle of the camping technology.
I have a couple of enamel ones that my mom. I can't remember where the hell I got them from, but they came with a bottle of 40 Creek, 2 of them, and they're brown. Boom, that's what I use. And they've been treating me well for 5 years. I don't bring them on like all the trips, but in the winter I will bring them.
Mm-hmm.
I have some friends who swear by the Yeti stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know what that's like for you guys who are experienced, woodsmen. But
on a canoe trip, I would never bring one. I have like a pint glass size one here. I'll drink beer out of, or water, or anything cold.
I think car camping.
Car camping, perfect.
Okay.
It's hot. Your drink is cold. It's not gonna get hot. But in, you're 2 days deep in Algonquin or something, your drink's not cold to start with. There's no point in insulating it because you're not.
Right.
Good
You could
point.
throw it in the lake and it might get you a couple degrees cooler, but not really.
Well, in fact, you'd go the other way if you're 2 days into a 4-day canoe camping, right? You don't want something too isolé, whatever that is in English.
Insulate, yeah.
Right, because what you want to do is throw your beer cans into the water to cool down,
right in the water,
and then just take them out of the lake, pop, and
less is more. You just
makes sense.
I'm not like an anal retentive guy really in any way, except when I'm camping. Like I like to have all my shit in bags put away. I don't like having stuff strewn everywhere. I don't like having a ton of stuff. It is I think that's one of the things I like most about it. It's like you just have your bag on your back full of your stuff, and that's all you need to survive. Nothing more, nothing less.
That's a nice notion. I like it. You know, I need to do.
Well, it's very romantic.
Been just a city kid for so long now.
Jesus, you're a Newfoundlander. You can't be a city kid.
I know, man. I know it's brutal.
Geez.
Although, yeah, summer versus winter is a different thing. You'll enjoy that city life when you're taking that 6 a.m. shit when it's minus 30 degrees outside.
Yeah. I think this summer I'm definitely going to try to get out and do some camping at least.
Yeah, you know, like on my other channel, I make no bones about the fact that hitting the woods is the way I don't have to pay for therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Man, it's magic out there. It really is, especially if you can hit the boreal. That's my favorite part of the world. Well, the thing is, I haven't seen a lot of the world. There are places I want to see, you know, but I've essentially, you know, typical white guy, right? I've seen Europe. I've seen North America.
I've been a couple Caribbean places, Canada and US. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mostly Canada and US for me as well. But I mean, I took a previous girlfriend to France when I was in a previous job where I made a lot of money. You know, so like I've never seen Africa, though I'd love to.
Yeah,
I've never seen Sweden, though I'd love to. But I mean, they've got boreal too. So of the landscape that I have been to, the boreal forest is my favorite. The scents, the sights, just the flavor of the day and the night in the boreal forest is unbeatable. And that's why I like gins and stuff that are heavy on the boreal florals, not florals.
Looking at a tree.
Yeah, you know, stuff heavy on the boreal botanicals, like the, you know, a black spruce, stuff like that. I just, because it reminds me of being up near the Saguenay or whatever. But like, you know, I'm not going to bring this bottle into the woods. I have to, because I won't necessarily break something smaller, but I kind of feel that, well, packing one of these would suck.
Yeah, that's why even if you bring all one whiskey, I'd rather have 3 250 milliliter ones, because then you can tuck it into your camp shoes, or you can tuck in all these nooks and crannies. You got to fit this big old football somewhere.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of extra void space.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking that, by the way, if I had opened this on one of my review episodes rather than the live stream, I would have given that like an 8 on 10.
Nice.
I like it.
It's a nice bourbon. Yeah,
I'd buy it again. I would totally buy it.
Yeah, I quite liked it. I'd be curious to try it next to some of these other ones that are $30 cheaper. I don't feel like it blew me away for 50.
Well, Michter's make an American whiskey. That's
the one I almost bought.
Yeah, that apparently gets really high grades.
I think, Mike, you sent us a picture of that when you almost bought it. I don't know if I can get it here, but I'm curious about it.
Yeah, that's my brother, who's a bit of a whiskey guy as well. Every Christmas we go and buy a bunch of bottles of stuff and try it out. And last Christmas that was the one he had his eye on. We ended up picking something else, but I've sort of since then had my eye on that American whiskey from Michter's. Might need to try it soon.
That's the sour mash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe if we decide to do another bourbon, maybe we should, like, if I can find that here in Quebec, maybe we should do an episode with that.
Yeah, they do some different things with it. They do some things that sort of take it out of the bourbon realm.
Don't they have a rye as well?
Or
am I mixing them up with someone else?
I don't know. Let's do a quick look here.
Sure. I don't know, Mike. If we decided to do another American whiskey night, would you want to do that one?
Yeah. It's 2 hours have flown by.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Tenenbaum's going to sleep because God, Tenenbaum, what time is it you're in Sweden right now?
It's gotta be 7 a.m.
They make a rye.
5 or 6, 7, maybe 7 a.m. They do make a rye, eh? Yeah. I like rye. I don't know about you guys, but I like me some rye. Like 100% rye. If it says 100% rye on the bottle, chances are I'm picking up the bottle.
Definitely into rye for sure. Let's see here. So I'm just looking at the difference here between their American whiskey.
Okay, Mike, it's 6 a.m. for Tenenbaum. All right, good night, man. Thanks for hanging out with us. Sleep well. Sleep well, right?
Cheers, man. I would stay up to 6 a.m. to hang out with myself, so appreciate it.
Definitely appreciate it, man.
I wouldn't stay up to 6 a.m. to hang with me either, but it's okay. I would stay up till 6 to. What the hell would I stay up till 6 to? You know, when I was a young kid, man, I was at my best between 2 and 4 in the morning.
I'm a night owl, man.
Painting. I'm traditionally a night owl, but I'm trying very hard not to because I have a 9-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah. So
I can't necessarily.
So the difference between the American whiskey that they make and their bourbon and the rye is they're not aged in new barrels. They're aged in whiskey soaked barrels. So they're second use barrels that they're aging them in.
So that's the rye and the sour mash. By the way, what the hell is sour mash? Do you know anything about that?
I don't know offhand. I mean,
what have I seen sour mash on? Is that Jack Daniels? Sour?
Jack Daniels says sour mash. Yeah. I'm not sure what kind of dictates it to be a sour mash as opposed to like any other mash.
Okay, check this out. According to Wikipedia, sour mash is a process used in the distilling industry that uses material from an older batch of mash to start the fermentation of a new batch, analogous to the making of sourdough bread with a starter.
Oh, yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm down to do whatever next, but one of these...
Yeah, the Basil Hayden's. I'd be interested in trying that as well because I've seen that and I've had the regular Basil Hayden's and I really like it. So I'd be down.
All right. I'm gonna pour myself a little bit of something here.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for one more here. But if you guys want to sign off, I don't know.
I think I'm gonna go to bed. My kid's gonna be up in about 6 hours. So.
All right, so let's shut down the broadcast. So to those of you who are hanging out in the side chat, thanks for hanging with us. Thanks to you two for hanging out. And I think that our tasting panel and I will come up with something else for, I don't know, maybe next month or something. So between now and then, to everyone out there, please stay sane, stay healthy, stay safe, and be nice to each other. Bye.